reading Matthew Perry's book and reading Tom Felton's book, they're mentioning all the stuff they worked on like before and after their big kind of break. So, you know, Matthew Perry talks about all of the TV shows he was on before Friends, how he was signed to another pilot that nearly stopped him from getting the role on Friends. And then after it, all these shows that he was on. And he set up a few shows after Friends, most of which failed, but I've actually been watching, because again, I get obsessed. I'm like, I just want to watch and see and just have a look at all of these things he's talking about. Like, Tom Felton mentions in his book that he was in a movie called The Borrowers before he was in Harry Potter. And I went and like tried to find The Borrowers online and yeah. But Matthew Perry was in this show that was a reboot of The Odd Couple. And I completely forgot about it, but it aired in Australia because I remember at the time, it was about 2015. I remember at the time they were playing like ads for it all the time, being like, The Odd Couple, Matthew Perry from Friends is Oscar from The Odd Couple. And I never watched it, and I remember seeing it and being like, I bet this show fails. It ended up with 3 seasons, which, you know, isn't huge for a sitcom, but, you know, it's fair. And so I've been watching the 2015 Odd Couple series with Matthew Perry. And it's like, it's reasonably funny. It's also got Yvette Nicole Brown from Community, who I can't remember her character's name in Community. But yeah, it's just, I find it really fascinating that a lot of these actors have like all these other projects to their name that you don't really hear about. After Seinfeld ended, aside from Jerry Seinfeld, all 3 of the other major characters, Michael Richards, Kramer, Jason Alexander George, and Julia Louis-Dreyfus, Elaine, all 3 of them went on to be stars of very short-lived, unsuccessful sitcoms, right? Michael Richards did this show called The Michael Richards Show. You can look at it on YouTube. It was very unpopular. I think he was like a detective or something. Jason Alexander was in another sitcom. It was like a family sitcom where I think he was the dad, which didn't do well at all. And Julia Louis-Dreyfus did, I'm pretty sure, The New Adventures of Old Christine, which aired in Australia for a little bit as well, but I haven't heard anything about since like 2004. And it was actually known for a while as the Seinfeld curse, because all of these actors, after starring in the biggest show in the world, trying to get other shows off the ground post Seinfeld, they couldn't do it. Like, none of these shows were successful. I think Julia Louis-Dreyfus was successful first with The New Adventures of Old Christine, and then now she's in Veep and done a bit. But Jason Alexander and Michael Richards for other reasons, but Jason Alexander could never really get another starring role in a sitcom, despite the fact that his performance as George is one of the most profoundly critically acclaimed roles in television of all time. Of course, a lot of people will know that Joey from Friends went on to star in a sitcom spin-off of Friends called Joey that featured Joey, and it was, again, notoriously bad, almost universally disliked by critics and fans of Friends alike, and everybody hated it. I've never seen it, but it's very interesting to see these actors who are just stars. They are absolutely stars in their TV series, and they try to go on to do something else, and it just flops. It just doesn't work. It doesn't capture the magic of the original source material. You know, another example is the Cleveland show from Family Guy, where they got Cleveland from Family Guy and took him into his own show. Failed. No one cared about it at all. But that was a bit different because Cleveland was never a remarkable character on that show, so it was a strange decision anyway. But then, you know, one of the only super successful sitcom spin-offs was Frasier, which was a spin-off of Cheers, and with Kelsey Grammer, who's Sideshow Bob. And that was more successful than Cheers and more popular and more critically acclaimed than Cheers. So it's just, yeah, I just find it really fascinating. And it's just interesting watching Chandler, Matthew Perry in The Odd Couple in a very similar setup, like living in an apartment, you know, multicam setup, sitcom with a laugh track, very similar to Friends. and you just wonder how he felt like doing that again, because he was an executive producer, and it was never going to work. But it's also it's not a terrible show. Like, I don't think it's awful, and it's not super dated. It just didn't work. It just didn't resonate. I haven't really seen David Schwimmer in anything since Friends. I mean, I'm sure he's been in stuff. I haven't seen... I mean, Jennifer Aniston obviously went into movies. Joey Tribbiani, Matt LeBlanc didn't really do heaps. I know he was in that show Episodes, which I haven't seen any of. But then Lisa Kudrow also didn't do a whole lot after Friends, like didn't have heaps of success in the TV space after Friends, and nor did Monica. I'm blanking on her name. I definitely know it. Oh, Courtney Cox. She did a little bit. She did movies and stuff, but yeah, I don't feel it. It's just very interesting how you kind of get typecast as that. And Tom Felton spoke about that in his book as well. He's like, it was really hard for him to get roles after Harry Potter because he was just so typecast as Draco Malfoy. I'm pretty sure Mark Hamill, who was Luke Skywalker, had the same issue. Same with Carrie Fisher. Like, Harrison Ford did pretty well after Star Wars. Like, he kept getting a lot of starring roles, but Mark Hamill and Carrie Fisher, like, didn't have any real starring roles outside of Star Wars until the sequel Star Wars came out. So it's just, I don't know, I found it very fascinating.